Hello everyone. Welcome back to our channel. Have you ever felt like you are moving forward and standing still at the same time? It sounds strange, doesn't it? You work hard. You try to improve. You learn new things. You become a little more patient, a little more experienced, a little wiser. Yet when you look at your life, it often feels exactly the same. The same room, the same job, the same routine, the same worries. And sometimes you begin to wonder if anything is really changing at all. Maybe you have experienced this while learning English. You study every day. You listen carefully. You write down new words. You practice speaking. But when you compare yourself to a fluent speaker, the distance still feels enormous. You cannot see the improvement. You only see how far you still have to go. Or maybe it happens somewhere else in your life. You are trying to become healthier. You walk every morning. You choose better habits. You try to sleep earlier. Yet when you look in the mirror, everything seems the same. Or perhaps you are working toward a dream, a business, a career, a creative project. You invest your time and energy, day after day, week after week, month after month. But the results you hoped for seem far away, and slowly a question appears in your mind. What if I'm not making progress at all? Many people carry this question quietly. They may not say it out loud, but they feel it. Sometimes late at night, sometimes during a long commute, sometimes while looking out of a window on a rainy afternoon. They wonder if all their effort is leading somewhere, if all the small actions matter, if all the waiting is worth it. There is nothing unusual about this. It is a very human tendency. We all want to see movement. We all want proof. We want to know that our effort means something, that our time is creating change, that our struggles are not being wasted. But life has an interesting habit. Some of its most important changes happen where our eyes cannot easily see them. Imagine sitting beside a window on a quiet morning. Outside, the sky is still dark. The world feels asleep. The streets are silent. The trees barely move. Everything appears unchanged. You look outside for a few seconds. Nothing happens. You look again. Still nothing. And yet, somewhere beyond the horizon, morning is already arriving. The earth is turning. The light is moving. The darkness is slowly retreating. You simply cannot see it yet. Then, little by little, the sky begins to soften. The darkness becomes gray. The gray becomes blue. The blue becomes gold. And suddenly the world is filled with light. People often call this sunrise. But the truth is that the transformation began long before anyone noticed it. Progress often works exactly the same way. Many people expect growth to be obvious. They imagine a dramatic moment, a clear breakthrough, a single day when everything suddenly changes. But real growth is rarely dramatic. Most of the time, it is quiet, almost invisible, like sunrise, like the changing seasons, like a seed growing beneath the soil. Imagine planting a small seed in a garden. You place it carefully into the earth. You water it. You protect it. You wait. The next day, nothing appears. A week later, nothing appears. 2 weeks later, still nothing. If someone walked by and looked only at the surface, they might say that nothing is happening. But beneath the soil, an entirely different story is unfolding. Tiny roots are reaching into the ground, searching for stability, searching for strength, searching for the resources needed for future growth. The most important work begins long before the first leaf appears, and perhaps that is one of the hardest truths to accept. The parts of growth that matter most are often invisible at first. Think about a tree. When people admire a tall tree, they usually notice its height, its branches, its leaves, its beauty. Few people think about the roots. Yet without strong roots, the tree could never stand. Without roots, it could not survive storms. Without roots, it could not continue growing year after year. The hidden part supports the visible part. Always. In many ways, our lives are similar. The patience nobody notices, the discipline nobody applauds, the practice sessions nobody sees, the mistakes nobody understands, the quiet mornings, the difficult evenings, the moments when you continue even though you feel discouraged. These moments are like roots. They are invisible, but they matter. Sometimes they matter more than anything else. Over time, we begin to realize something surprising. The biggest changes in life often do not feel big while they are happening. A child learning to speak does not wake up one morning and suddenly become fluent. The process happens slowly. The child listens, observes, experiments, makes mistakes, learns again, day after day, month after month. Then one day, people notice the result. But the real growth happened long before that moment. The same is true for confidence. Many people believe confidence appears suddenly. They imagine a moment when fear disappears forever. But confidence rarely works that way. More often, confidence grows quietly. One conversation, one challenge, one uncomfortable experience, one small success, then another, and another, and another. Each experience adds something. Not much, just a little. So little that it is easy to miss. Yet years later, those small moments become a completely different person. Someone stronger, someone calmer, someone more capable, someone who can handle situations that once felt impossible. And this is where many people become confused, because they judge their growth from the inside, and growth always feels slower from the inside. Imagine seeing a friend after 10 years. The changes would be obvious. You would immediately notice how much they have grown. But that friend saw themselves every day. For them, the changes happened gradually, so gradually that they barely noticed. The same thing happens in our own lives. We see ourselves every day. We carry our worries every day. We hear our own thoughts every day. Because we are so close to ourselves, we often miss the changes taking place. The progress becomes too familiar to notice. Like watching the hands of a clock. You know they are moving. But if you stare at them, they seem perfectly still. Only after enough time passes do you realize how far they have traveled. Perhaps life is like that clock, moving quietly, moving steadily, even when it appears motionless, even when you feel stuck, even when doubt begins to whisper in your ear. There are seasons in life when growth is easy to see, but there are also seasons when growth happens underground, where roots deepen, where foundations strengthen, where preparation quietly takes place. And those seasons are not wasted seasons. They are necessary seasons. The tree needs them. The seed needs them. And perhaps we need them too. Maybe right now there is something in your life that feels unchanged. A goal, a dream, a skill, a relationship, a personal struggle. Maybe you have been wondering if your effort is making any difference. If so, consider this possibility. What if the progress is real but invisible? What if the roots are growing? What if the sunrise has already begun? What if the story is changing even though the page in front of you looks familiar? Because sometimes the most important transformations do not announce themselves. They arrive quietly, slowly, patiently, and by the time we finally notice them, they have already changed our lives. But if this is true, why do we struggle so much to see our own progress? Why do we often feel stuck even when we are moving forward? Why do we doubt ourselves during the very moments when growth is actually happening? One reason is surprisingly simple. We spend most of our time looking at the distance ahead rather than the distance behind. Imagine that you are standing at the foot of a mountain. The peak is hidden somewhere in the clouds. You know where you want to go. You know what success looks like. You know what kind of person you hope to become. And because your eyes are fixed on the summit, every step feels small, almost too small to matter. You take one step. The mountain still looks enormous. You take another, The mountain still seems far away. You walk for hours, yet the peak remains distant. Slowly, a dangerous thought begins to appear. Maybe I am not getting anywhere. Maybe all these steps mean nothing. Maybe I am still the same person. But what if someone asked you to turn around, just for a moment, just long enough to look behind you? You might discover something surprising. The place where you started is no longer visible. The path below has become smaller. The valley that once stood above you now rests far beneath your feet. You have already traveled much farther than you realize. The problem was never that you stopped moving. The problem was that you kept measuring yourself against the destination. Many people do this every day. A person learning English compares themselves to someone who has spoken fluently for 20 years. A young employee compares themselves to a successful executive. A beginner compares themselves to an expert. A person taking their first steps compares themselves to someone already near the finish line. And the result is almost always the same. Their progress disappears, not because it isn't there, but because comparison hides it. Comparison is like standing inside a beautiful garden while staring at a distant forest. No matter how much your own garden grows, it never seems impressive. Your eyes are always focused somewhere else. There is a very human tendency to believe that growth should feel dramatic. We expect transformation to feel like a lightning strike, a sudden breakthrough, a moment that changes everything. But real growth often feels more like riding a train. Imagine boarding a train before sunrise. Outside the window, the world is dark. The landscape is difficult to see. The train begins moving, slowly at first, then steadily. You sit quietly in your seat. 10 minutes pass. Nothing feels different. 30 minutes pass. Still nothing remarkable. An hour passes. You begin to wonder if you are even moving at all. Then you look out the window. The city is gone. The scenery has changed. The fields are different. The mountains are different. The entire landscape has transformed. The train was moving the entire time. You simply could not feel every moment of movement. Life often works exactly this way. Growth is usually too gradual to feel. Day by day, the changes are tiny, almost invisible. But year by year, the difference can be extraordinary. Think about someone who starts reading 10 pages every day. 10 pages does not sound impressive. It feels small, almost insignificant. But after 1 year, they have read thousands of pages. They have encountered new ideas, new perspectives, new ways of thinking. The daily change was invisible. The long-term change was remarkable. Or think about someone trying to become more patient. There is no certificate for patience, no applause, no dramatic moment. Most of the work happens internally. One difficult conversation, one moment of self-control, one situation where they choose understanding instead of anger. Again, and again, and again. Each moment seems ordinary. Yet over time, a different person begins to emerge. Not overnight, not suddenly, quietly, patiently, like a tree adding one ring at a time. When we look at a large tree, we see its height. We see its branches reaching toward the sky. But inside the trunk are hundreds of rings. Each ring tells the story of a season of rain, a season of wind, a season of drought, a season of growth. No single ring made the tree impressive. It was the accumulation, the steady continuation, the willingness to keep growing when growth was difficult to notice. Human lives are often built the same way. One day rarely changes everything. One decision rarely determines an entire future. More often, our lives are shaped by countless small choices. The choices nobody celebrates, the choices nobody posts online, the choices that seem too ordinary to matter. Choosing to continue, choosing to learn, choosing to try again, choosing not to quit. These choices may look small, but small things have a strange power. A river begins as a tiny stream. An ocean is made of countless drops. A forest begins with a seed, and a meaningful life is often built through small actions repeated over time. Yet there is another reason progress feels invisible. We quickly adapt to our own growth. Think about a child growing taller. The parents notice, relatives notice, friends notice, but the child often does not, because the change happens gradually, day after day, month after month. The same thing happens emotionally. The challenges that once overwhelmed you may no longer bother you. The situations that once frightened you may now seem manageable. The conversations that once felt impossible may now feel normal. But because you adapted to these improvements, you stop noticing them. They become your new normal. And once something becomes normal, it becomes invisible. This is one of the greatest delusions in life. We mistake familiarity for stagnation. We assume that because something feels normal, no growth has occurred. But often the opposite is true. What feels normal today may have felt impossible 5 years ago. What feels ordinary today may have been your dream in the past. Many people forget this. They keep moving the finish line. They achieve one goal, then immediately focus on the next. They solve one problem, then immediately worry about another. They reach one mountain peak, then search for a higher mountain. As a result, satisfaction becomes difficult to find, because every achievement quickly becomes ordinary. Every success becomes expected. Every improvement becomes invisible. And perhaps this is why gratitude matters so much. Gratitude helps us turn around. It helps us look back down the mountain. It helps us see the distance we have already traveled. Not to become complacent, not to stop growing, but to recognize that growth has already been happening, even during the seasons when it felt invisible, even during the moments when doubt felt stronger than hope, even during the days when progress seemed nowhere to be found. Because sometimes the train is moving even when the ride feels still. Sometimes the roots are growing even when the ground looks unchanged. And sometimes the person you are becoming is already taking shape, even though you cannot see it yet. And sometimes the person you are becoming is already taking shape, even though you cannot see it yet. Perhaps that is one of the most important lessons we can learn about life. Movement and feeling movement are not always the same thing. Growth and seeing growth are not always the same thing. And progress does not disappear simply because it becomes difficult to notice. There is a quiet kind of wisdom that many people discover only after years of experience. It is the understanding that life is not always asking us to move faster. Sometimes life is asking us to trust the process, not blindly, not carelessly, but patiently. Think about a lighthouse standing beside the ocean. Day and night, waves crash against the shore. Storms arrive. Fog covers the horizon. The sea becomes rough. The sky becomes dark. From a distance, it may seem as if the lighthouse is accomplishing nothing. It stands in the same place, day after day, year after year. It does not travel. It does not chase the ships. It does not race across the ocean. And yet its presence matters. Quietly, consistently. Its light helps guide travelers through darkness. Its strength comes not from speed, but from steadiness. In many ways, personal growth is similar. We often admire dramatic stories, the overnight success, the sudden breakthrough, the extraordinary transformation. But most meaningful growth is much less dramatic. It happens in ordinary moments, moments that rarely become stories, moments that nobody applauds, moments that may seem completely insignificant at the time. A person chooses to forgive instead of holding on to anger. A student continues studying even after a disappointing result. Someone starts again after failure. Someone speaks kindly when they could have spoken harshly. Someone keeps going despite uncertainty. These moments rarely make headlines, yet they shape lives. They shape character. They shape the person we slowly become. And perhaps that is why invisible progress is often the most valuable kind, because it changes us from the inside out, not just our circumstances, Not just our achievements, but our hearts, our perspectives, our understanding of life. Many years from now, you may look back and realize that the most important season of your life was a season that seemed uneventful while you were living it. A season when nothing dramatic happened. No major success, no big celebration, no life-changing announcement. Just ordinary days, ordinary mornings, ordinary evenings. Yet those ordinary days quietly built the foundation for everything that followed. Imagine sitting beside the ocean as the sun begins to set. The waves move toward the shore, again, and again, and again. At first glance, every wave looks the same. One wave arrives, then another, then another. Nothing seems different. But if you sit there long enough, you begin to notice something. The shoreline changes. The sand changes. The patterns change. The landscape slowly transforms, not because of one powerful wave, but because of thousands of small waves working together over time. Human growth often follows the same pattern. A single day may not change your life. A single conversation may not change your life. A single effort may not change your life. But repeated over weeks, months, and years, those moments become something powerful, something lasting, something real. This is why patience is so closely connected to wisdom. Patience allows us to continue investing in a future we cannot yet see. Patience allows us to keep watering the seed before the flower appears. Patience allows us to trust that the train is moving even when the scenery seems familiar. Patience allows us to keep walking up the mountain even when the summit remains hidden by clouds. And perhaps patience is not simply the ability to wait. Perhaps patience is the ability to believe that today's small actions matter, even when the results are invisible, especially when the results are invisible, because that is often when the most important work is happening. There is a beautiful truth hidden inside all of this. You do not need to see every step for the journey to be real. You do not need to notice every change for growth to be happening. You do not need constant proof that you are moving forward. The river does not stop flowing because it cannot see the ocean. The seed does not stop growing because it cannot see the tree. The sunrise does not stop coming because the night still looks dark. Each continues its journey, quietly, patiently, faithfully. And maybe we can learn something from that. Maybe we can be a little gentler with ourselves. Maybe we can stop demanding visible results from every effort. Maybe we can recognize that some of the most meaningful chapters of life are written slowly, one page at a time, one choice at a time, one day at a time. If you have been feeling discouraged lately, if you have been wondering whether your effort matters, if you have been questioning whether you are making progress, consider this possibility. The roots may already be growing. The train may already be moving. The mountain path may already be behind you. The sunrise may already be on its way. And the person you hope to become may already be closer than you think. Not because everything has changed overnight, but because change rarely happens overnight. It happens quietly, slowly, patiently. The way a tree grows, the way a river flows, the way morning arrives, one moment at a time. So the next time life feels still, remember this. Invisible does not mean absent. Quiet does not mean powerless. And slow does not mean you are failing. Sometimes the most remarkable progress is happening beneath the surface. And sometimes the most important growth is the growth that nobody sees, including you. Thank you for spending this time with me, and see you in the next story.